Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to GDI Consulting's webinar on the NOAA Mission Information Technology Services NMITS. My name is Ab Vand, and I head GDI Consulting's Capture and Proposal Development Department. If this is the first time that you're attending one of our webinars, to the right of your screen, under the blue File tab, there is a blue Download File button with which you can download the presentation slides. Chat is at the bottom right-hand side of the panel, which you can use to send any questions you might have. We'll hold a Q&A session at the end, so we'll get to your questions. So as you get to any questions through the webinar, you can just use the chat and send your questions, and we'll get to them at the end. If you click on the red button with the three dots to the right, it enlarges your screen and hides the side panel. And when you want to chat or download the presentation, you can click on that red button again, and it will expand it. Also, finally, to reconnect, in case you drop out, there's a reconnect button on the top of the screen, and if you lose connection, you just use that. Okay, so these were the administrative. Also note that this webinar is being recorded, and we'll be sending you the recording within 24 hours. So if you drop out or cannot stay till the end, you will have the recording by tomorrow. And as I said, we're going to have a Q&A session at the end, and to answer any questions that you might have. Okay, let me, before we start and go into the details of this webinar, just introduce our company to you. We've been in business for more than 10 years, and we've been growing steadily during these years, well, more than steadily. 68% growth in revenue and 12% in IDIQ and GWAC wins. We have an 81% win rate, which is very high. And we have about 50 proposal managers and writers in-house, and a large network that we reach out to and use to get these proposal managers or writers or SMEs in case we need them. And we had 228 wins in 2018 with over $6 billion of contracts for our clients. I will not go into details and won't take your time on that. We'll go into the main subject of this webinar. Okay, the outline of our webinar today, we're going to see what the highlights of this opportunity are, what are the objectives, the scope, which is essentially the technical factors. Then we'll dive into the proposal structure, the evaluation criteria, and the win strategy, and then we'll go into the Q&A. Before we go further, I just wanted to make three special notes on this. GDI Consulting is a business development firm. We are not an intel providing firm. So essentially, our webinars are more geared towards the hands-on capture and, more importantly, proposal development side of these opportunities rather than just pure intelligence. We hold webinars on a periodic basis, so in case you want to participate in the future ones, you can let us know. And finally, one thing I wanted to mention, because this NOAA NMITS is going to use involves a lot of partnering. For those companies who do want to partner with others and have not yet done that, you can contact us. At the end, I will give you the contact information for our company, and we will put your hands in the hands of the others who approach us. So both primes and subs, if you're missing anyone and you would like to partner, we can help you. Okay, with that said, let's dive into the main project. Okay, as far as the timing is concerned, the NOAA NMITS was released on May 30th. Submissions are due July 29th. And there is an attachment 5 with which you can provide question and answers. The last date is June 14th. In fact, yesterday, some of the question and answers were released, very few, just 4 of them. And they mentioned with regards to, I'll get to those, but it seems that they're not going to wait for all the question and answers and then release them. They're doing it in chunks. Okay. What are the highlights? This is a total small business, 5-year base and 5-year option. And all vendors must be able to support the entire 10-year ordering period. That's one of the requirements. This is obviously a GSA IT Schedule 71. There are going to be 10 to 25 BPA awards, and they've said that they're targeting 40%, a minimum of 40% to socioeconomic firms. So that's something to consider. There are 133 labor categories descriptions that they might be asking for. This is eventually going to replace the NOAA link. Its scope is wider, and it's encompassing both the core and the SMS requirements. The funding types are varied, both FFP, firm fixed price, labor hour, and time and material. In terms of the acquisition, this is a best value. It's not a self-scoring, or it's not a lowest price technically acceptable. It's going to be highest technically rated coders with a fair and reasonable price. And the non-price factors in terms of importance are listed here: technical capability, management approach, sample task order approach, and past performance. This is in the descending order of importance. As I said, this is a GSA Schedule 70, SINS 132-15. I think this is missing, and 7500. These two are the SINs, so they must be. You can't be on other SINs to participate on this. This is a total small business and set aside, and you must meet the size standard at the time of the award. JVs and CTAs are allowed, but because this is a GSA schedule type contract, the JV must have a GSA schedule contract, and if you're using a CTA system, all the CTA members must have GSA schedule contracts and be small. After the award, if a CTA team member becomes large, the BPA holder, the prime, they're not going to be allowed to use or bid on the task orders where the CTA member was identified as the lead, but they are allowed to replace that CTA member. Okay, as far as eligibility, this is a comparison that is provided in the RFP with regards to where you could use the CTA system versus the usual prime sub relationship. If you have a CTA arrangement, each team member must have a GSA schedule, but the good thing about prime sub relationship is only the prime would need a GSA contract schedule. The subs do not need that. In the CTA arrangement, each team member is responsible for duties addressed in the CTA document. So there's a division of responsibility, whereas in the prime sub, the prime cannot delegate responsibility to the subs. So the prime is responsible for everything from the beginning. Each team member under the CTA agreement, each team member has privity of the contract, whereas in the other one, obviously just the prime contract has privity of the contract with regards to the government. And then again, under the CTA way of doing it, the ordering activity, the agency is invoiced at each team member's unit prices. So what they have actually given on the GSA schedule or on this BPA, that they will order. Whereas for a prime sub, everything comes from the prime's prices. Okay. There are some limitations here. For example, coders who submit more than one code in response to this RFP will not be evaluated. So that's something to consider in terms of being part of different teams. Codes will only be accepted from GSA Schedule 70 special item SINs 13251 and 7500. If you don't have that SIN, one of these two, you can't submit. Also, they're very sensitive about the fact that you need to cover the entire 10-year ordering period. Finally, there are 3 volumes: business, technical, and price, and we'll go into details on those for the submission of the proposal. Okay, with regards to the past performance, up to 5 contracts, but at least 2 of them must come from the prime or joint venture. And they must have been done within the last 5 years. Okay, and those coders who are prime, in other words, in a prime with a CTA or a prime sub relationship, they must use past performance that is relevant to this RFQ. They can't use any past performance, which is the usual way of doing this in these proposals. But the important thing is you cannot use the past performance information of your subcontractors. So when we discuss the differences between a prime sub relationship and a CTA member relationship, that's the major important difference. If you have a prime sub relationship, you cannot use the past performance information. However, if you do have a CTA member, a CTA relationship, you can use the member past performances. And this was, in fact, clarified in yesterday's question and answer as well. Okay, let's go into the technical factors involved that are listed on attachment 6 as well. There are 6 of them that you have to cover. The more you cover, the more score or the better your proposal will be. And we'll get into that. But these are enterprise security services, customer support services, mission and business application tools, portals and web services, enterprise computing, cloud storage, shared and field services. The 5th one is data and voice network services. And finally, cybersecurity and information assurance services. So these are the 6 technical factors or areas, and they are detailed out in attachment 6. We've listed them here. I'm not going to, read them for you. There are 40 different areas overall under these 6 technical factors that are listed in these slides. So you can look at the slide later on and look at them. Obviously, they're listed on attachment 6 as well, detailed out, and we need to write towards them in the proposal. So I'll just skip over this section, but as you can see, these are the different sub areas under each of these sections. Okay, now we can go into the proposal structure, and we'll see how that goes. First of all, there are, as I showed you, there are 3 volumes: the business volume, the technical volume, and the price volume. So we'll go over each quickly. The first one, volume 1, business, it has 4 sections in it. The cover letter, which is 2 pages. Then you have to include the joint venture or CTA agreements. Remember that if you have a prime sub relationship and you have some subcontractors, you do not need to provide those agreements. This is just for joint ventures and CTA agreements. And there's no specific format. They just want to have those in place. Third section is the OCI mitigation plan. You need to provide that. That is important for them. So the organizational conflict of interest mitigation plan must be included in volume 1. And then we have finally a copy of the GSA schedules. That includes the prime itself, and if you have formed a CTA membership system, then all the CTA members must also include copies of their GSA schedule here in volume 1 as well. Okay, in volume 2, this is the technical volume, which is the most important one. There are 4 factors in volume 2, and the 5th factor is volume 3 price. So we'll go over each of these. This is a little bit like a kickoff meeting, but I did want to go over these because there are some important issues that all companies who are participating should consider. Okay, so factor 1, which is the most important factor, it will get the highest score as well as far as the government is concerned. So you should pay the maximum focus on this one, is the technical capability. And here you're supposed to cover and show your corporate experience in all those 6 technical areas with the 40 sub areas. This is in attachment 6 listed out of the RFP documents. But as I showed you very quickly previously, there are 40 areas in it. And here you must write towards your corporate experience towards them. You need to summarize the size, scope, and complexity of the work that you've done in those 6 core management components and the 40 respective service areas. For each of those service areas, you're allowed to provide up to 2 contracts. Now, one thing that they have mentioned, which is critical, is that over-reliance on partners is a weakness. In other words, you cannot just mention the corporate experience of your partners, whether be it, for example, CTA members, and not mention anything about yourself. So it is important that you actually mention that, show that you do have the corporate experience is as many of those areas as you can. There was a question yesterday on this, whether if an offerer cannot cover every aspect, every of those different core management components, and plus the 40 respective service areas, and the government has said that's not a problem. They can still submit a proposal. So, but the more you cover and the better you cover, so that you give confidence to the government that you do cover all 6 core areas plus the 40 service areas, the better and the higher chances. And the maximum is 35 pages for this. So that's something to consider when you're, especially if you have different team members, each writing towards each of these. That's something to consider. And the division of pages between the different team members, so you can actually cover all 6 core areas and provide a proper proposal. Factor 2 is the management approach. It has 2 sections per the RFP. One is you need to provide an org chart with a line of authority and communication within your own organization with your partners. And that means the CTA members as well as subcontractors if you have, as well as with the government. So all of these you must show in that org chart and explain. And then you have to discuss the technical capabilities as the prime and the cross-cutting services in the following areas: program management, subcontractor technical support services, call-out and per-call support services, search support services, deployment support services. So All these 5 areas you need to cover in this management approach. And this must be less than 15 pages. Now, what I wanted to focus on is this discuss technical capabilities as the prime, because I've heard that some companies that are going after this, they have asked their subs to write parts of the management approach. This is the wrong approach. This must be from the prime, or at least what is written towards is as if the prime is saying it. You might delegate this to one of your CTA members to write, but it shouldn't be about how that CTA member is going to do these. It should be about how the prime is going to do it. So take heed of that. This is important. The government is looking for the prime. They want to make sure that the prime has the management capabilities and not the CTA members. Of course, I don't mean that that's zero. You should cover the CTA members as well, but you should give the main emphasis to the prime. So this is the important point I wanted to make it mention here. Okay, factor 3. Factor 3 is the sample task order approach. They have provided the PWS for the sample task order. And here you must write both the technical approach to it and cover all the PWS items, as well as the management approach to do it. And in the management approach, they have emphasized staffing plan and providing a labor mix. My suggestion is that you do the same, but in a mini situation for the management approach. In other words, provide the org chart and all those 5 areas that they mentioned in the previous section, the main management approach, factor 2, which would be the program management, subcontractor, technical support, blah, blah, blah. So this is my suggestion to companies to cover that in 10 pages. So the technical approach and the management approach of the task order, the sample task order, that comes as factor 3, and you have 10 pages to do it. Okay, factor 4 is past performance. You need to provide up to 5 contracts, but at least a minimum of 2. So it's between 2 to 5. Obviously, the more you provide, the better chances. So you shouldn't, keep to the minimum. The past performance cannot come from your subcontractors. However, it can come from either you or the JV members, plus the CTA members. So all of them can be used. It must have been done during the past 5 years. And the projects that you use must be, they can be both prime or subcontracts that you have done. So that's the good thing. In other words, if you can also bring in subcontracts that you have done, and that's acceptable. However, as I said, subcontractors' projects cannot be used, although CTA member projects can be used. And there is a point about at least one of the 5, the more, of course, the better, but at least one of the 5 must be similar in scope and complexity to the sample task order. So that's something to consider when you're picking the 5 projects. Now, the good thing about that is if you don't have that in your in the projects that you have done as the prime, perhaps one of your CTA members might have a project that is very similar to that sample task order. So that's where those partnership relationships are good for. Finally, each of these must be written in those what they've given as reference worksheets, the past performance reference worksheets that cannot be more than 2 pages for a maximum of 10 pages. Okay, finally, price. It's fairly clear cut. You have to fill out the attachment 5. They updated attachment 5 yesterday, which has the labor rates and pricing table. There were some mistakes in the qualifications of the labor categories that they have put. So they've updated that, and you can use the new updated one. Remember that you have to give pricing for the entire BPA period, which the form does allow you to do that. And if you have formed a CTA, each team member must provide their rates for the each labor category. So each team member's rates might be different for each of those labor categories. And if you're awarded a contract and you do task orders, then based on who is the lead, that team member's rates are used. Must provide fully burdened rate. So must remember that the rates that you put in are fully burdened. And finally, the labor category rates that you put in there must correlate with your contract, with your GSA schedule contract. Okay, let's go into the evaluation factors and the win strategy. We're getting towards the end of this section. As we mentioned, this is a best value, will be determined by the highest technically rated coders with a fair and reasonable price. So in terms of price, they're going to just check and see whether they're fair and reasonable. I mean, that is not going to have a major effect on the evaluation criteria. The evaluation criteria are, as usual, significantly more important than cost, and the 4 of them are listed in descending order. So technical capability, those 35 pages covering those 6 major categories and 40 areas, that's the most important factor, and that's where you have to focus. After that comes management approach. After that comes the 10 pages that you have to write towards the sample task order approach, and then finally past performance, and finally the pricing. We've created what we call a win strategy stack. This shows a little bit about what different areas contribute to a winning strategy. First of all, as far as the offerer, and when I say offerer, I mean the entire either the JV or the prime. The technical capability has the highest value. A little bit narrower is the management approach, and then the sample task order, past performance, and price. So technical capability is shown here as having the highest weight and highest area, I should say. So this is the most important as far as the offerer itself or the JV and JV members are concerned. Now, in terms of partnering, when partnering, the 2 areas that are most important and partnering will help is in the technical capability and the sample task order approach. These 2 areas are the most important. Management approach, although you need to cover some of the say CTA partner member capabilities, but essentially, as I mentioned, this is about the prime. And then past performance, again, they do participate in that, but it has less effect rather than these 2, the technical capability and the sample task order approach. And finally, the proposal writing stack is on top of these. You really need to make concise, to the point writing and reviewing of the proposal to make sure that especially these 3 areas, the technical capability, the management approach, and the sample task order approach are, concise, to the point, and have been well done. And to finalize, I just wanted to mention what services we can provide. We provide full proposal support, which covers strategy, including theme discriminators and gap analysis, all the preparations involved. We do color reviews, coordination, authoring, and editing, and technical writing obviously goes into it. So we can provide the technical writings as well. And for those teams that do have their own internal system, we provide independent review services, red, gold reviews for them. So by that, this part of the presentation ends. I wanted to provide the contact info for our people. Marone is our BD for any company who wants to contact us with regards to any business development type and want an offer or anything like that. You can contact Marone. And my email and telephone number is here in case you have any technical questions. As I said, you can download this presentation slide, and then use these emails. Okay, let's now start the Q&A. I just wanted to see, Steve, are you online so you can help us in the Q&A? Okay, unfortunately, his voice is not working. Steve is one of our major main proposal managers, senior proposal managers from General Dynamics, but his voice is not working. So I'll go over the question and answers one by one. First question is, and for those who are dropping, as I said before I start, this is being recorded and I'll be sending this over to everyone by tomorrow. So first question says, when they say being able to support the entire 10-year ordering period, if an entity has 7 years left, they still would have to reapply through FAST. They haven't mentioned this exactly, but I think so. I would assume that this is one of the issues that once the award is made, you can actually discuss it with them. But as far as they are concerned right now, for the proposal development side and the bidding side, is that you need to bid for the full 10 years. You can't bid for 5 years or 6 years. So you need to bid for 10 years right now. Next question is, can a company be part of different CTAs that submit separate proposals? This is one of the questions that has been posed to them. They have not replied to that yet. And this is not clear in the RFP. So that's something to wait and see from the list of questions that have been submitted to GSA. But as far as the RFP is concerned, it does not mention that, whether a company can be or cannot be in multiple CTA arrangements. So that's something to ask, to be honest. I couldn't give you a definitive answer. Next question is, do you have a sense of what is intended by over-reliance of your partners may be considered a weakness? Yes, as I mentioned in the presentation, in the technical writing, the 35 pages that you have to present your, it's supposed to be presenting your corporate experience on those 6 core areas and the 40 sub areas. If most of it is from your CTA members, well, that is considered a weakness. The government wants to award this to a company that they can rely on doing a lot of the work itself. So that's the important thing for them. They don't want a company, and that's one of the reasons they actually changed the previous contracting situation with in which they mentioned that many times when they approached a company to do a task for them, they had to again approach a subcontractor. So the government doesn't want to do that on this one, on the NMITS. And that's why it's important to show that you as the prime have enough capabilities in the 6 core areas to cover a lot of it. And then the CTA members are going to augment you. So your proposal should not portray you as just one of the CTA members. You are the one who are actually, doing the main job, and the CTA members are helping you. So that's the message that your proposal must give to the government. If the government feels that you're weak in different areas and you're relying more and more on your partners, That's the weakness, and that's the meaning of what, at least that's what we think is the meaning of this sentence. Okay, there's another question saying, please define what they mean by current or overlapping GSA schedule contract. I'm not very sure. Well, current is obvious. You have to provide your current GSA schedule contract, but there are sometimes that there are special cases, at least I think that is what they mean when they say overlapping, in which some schedule contracts are changing from one type of SIN to another, and they're overlapping each other. I think that is what they mean, but I'm not sure. Current is obvious, but the overlapping GSA schedule contract, I do not know. So that's something to actually ask the government. Next question is, do you know if corporate experience of a CTA member who is considered a prime contractor for the portion of the assigned work is considered less important than the lead CTA member? In continuation of my explanation a few minutes ago, yes. Overall, yes. I'm not saying that you should not do that. Obviously, no one company has can cover the entire 40 areas well, and the government is not looking for that. So they understand that you will provide a CTA member corporate experience to cover a number of areas. So that is the situation. However, say just an imaginary proposal, the government evaluator sees that out of the 40 areas, 35 of them are done by the CTA member. Well, that's not plus sign. That doesn't tell the government that the prime is capable of doing this project by itself, at least a major portion of it. So that's what I meant. So by itself, your question is no. In other words, a CTA member corporate experience of a section is fine, is very good, but it's just that you must not portray the picture that most of the job is going to be done by CTA members. Next question. What do we need to do to say that we are submitting under CTA? Do we need to submit teaming agreements between Prime and all CTA members? Yes. On volume one of the sections was for all the CTA member agreements. So either if you're formed the JV, you put the JV agreement there, or if you have formed a CTA relationship with different companies, you must provide those CTA agreements in volume one. And as I mentioned, you don't need to put in any prime sub agreements there, just CTA agreements. Just in parentheses, for those companies who are participating in OASIS, don't get mixed up between these phrases. CTAs in OASIS are essentially prime sub relationship, but CTAs here in NOAA NMITS is completely different. In OASIS, the CTA relationship between companies, when they form it, is essentially a prime sub, and the members don't have any privity to the contract. But here, it's a true CTA with all the qualifications of a full CTA arrangement. So all the team members have privity to the contract. Okay, next question is, do we need to submit for all task areas, or can we submit only some? Well, the government has said that you can submit only some, but if you want to win, you have to submit to all. In other words, that's why you need to partner with others. You might not cover all of the areas, task areas, but you can bring in partners to be able to do that. So those who are going to win are the ones that do partner and and can cover all the 40 areas properly and write the proposal well, so that the government sees that, that they are a reliable partner for them. Okay, next question. The sample TO requirements do not provide enough relevant information to adequately size a solution. Do you know what the government intends? Well, do remember that you're not supposed to provide pricing for the TO. It's essentially you need to understand what the requirement is, but and that is enough. Now, it might be still vague, and so that because you're supposed to write towards the management part of it and the technical part of it, but no pricing. So if it's still vague for you and cannot provide exact exactly how you're supposed to do it technically, you can contact us, we can discuss it, and also you can provide questions. You still have time to provide your questions to the government and ask them to actually provide more details in it on the task order. Okay, another question says, no Q&A was posted yesterday on eBay. The last mod was on the 7th. Where were the questions? Well, at least the questions I have, it might be that my dating was wrong, but what I have for the questions that were provided, let me check the date so I can give you the exact. Okay, yes, you are right. That's on the 7th. We downloaded them yesterday, so my guys got it yesterday, and I said yesterday. That was a mistake on my part. They were on the 7th, so they were issued on the 7th. Nothing between 7th and today. Okay, can all CTA members submit past performance performed as a subcontractor? Yes, they've said that. Well, that's the vague part, because it said the prime can provide projects as both prime and subcontractor. It's quiet on what the CTA members can provide. I would think that they can do that too, but again, that's a question to be provided to the government. So far, what the government has said on the RFP is that a prime can provide past performance projects that it has done as prime and as subcontractor. It's the RFP language is quiet on what the CTA members can do. I would think that the same stands for them, but I think we need to clarify that with the government. Okay, it says that the 133 LCATs are a lot for small businesses. Between the prime and CTA partners, can we hit all LCATs, or do each partner needs to price them all? No, not necessarily. Not each partner does not need to price them all. So all together. So the combination of the prime and all the CTA members, yes, that's the case. The government is not expecting you to provide pricing for all of those, because obviously, as I said, you need to correlate those with your GSA contract as well. And very few companies have 133 LCATs in their GSA contract. So this is, again, a combination work, a teamwork between the lead and the CTA members. Somebody has mentioned that when you say prime, do you mean CTA lead? Yes, my apologies if I'm using the wrong word, prime. We should be very specific here. In OASIS, this is very loosely used. And these days, everybody's talking OASIS. So on NMITS, yes, this is the CTA lead. No prime here, CTA lead. We don't have that many labor categories among our CTA members. Who can, what can be done? Okay, so that's one of the things that you can actually, first of all, a number of these can be correlated to the same labor category on your contract. So it's not that it's a one-to-one correlation. So 4 or 5 of them might correlate to one of your labor categories on your contract. But still, if you're still missing it with all your CTA members, I would suggest to bring in more CTA members. Of course, this is prone to be a question to the government as well, letting them, asking them if we have to, if we are allowed not to actually provide pricing for all 133 LCATs. So that's something to ask the government as well. Next question is there a minimum period of performance for prime or subcontract past performance? Yes, 5 years. So 5 years is the minimum period. You mean the minimum period? They haven't mentioned that. On OASIS, GSA has said that you need to have at least 1 year of performance. Here, they've just said that the contracts must have been performed within the last 5 years. So they haven't put a limitation on the period of performance, whether it's 1 month, 1 year, or 5 years, whatever. They haven't said that. Okay, next question. In terms of the technical approach, how do you see the role of the CTA members in terms of addressing the technical areas? Obviously, the lead can divide the different areas based on the capabilities of each of the team members. And as I mentioned, you can use up to 2 contracts, 2 examples to show that capability. Now, it might be that whole sections are given to one CTA member, or sometimes some CTA members have a widespread experience, so they might be involved in different sections. It's obviously something, it's up to the team lead and as well as the team members, how they divide it between themselves. There's no limitation as to that, how you're supposed to write that. The only limitation was what I mentioned previously, at least what they have said, is that you shouldn't portray a way that the lead does not have enough capabilities to actually provide a major or a good part of the capabilities, and everything is on the CTA member side. But aside from that, or I'm talking about JVs as well. So for JVs, you need to provide, you need to divide the different, the 6 areas and the 40 sub areas in between the JV members, and just cover it. The important thing is to cover as many of those areas as you can with the 2 examples. So in picking the examples, since we have a limitation of 2 for each of the 6 areas, so maximum you can use 12 contracts. But what I mean is that the selection of the contracts is also very important. What contracts you actually pick to be able to cover all the sub areas in that core category. So that's something to consider as well. We have another question with regards to the LCATs, which I answered. So another question is how many CTA members are allowed? There's no limitation to the number of CTA members that are allowed. So it's up to the team to decide how many they want to be on it. The important thing, as I said, is that you must provide all the CTA agreements in volume 1. Okay, I think I have covered all the questions that I see here. If you have more questions, technical questions, please write to me. My email is there, and we'll be glad to answer you. And as I mentioned in the beginning, for those companies, both primes looking for more CTA, when I say primes of, again, CTA leads, if they're looking for more CTA members, and vice versa for those companies who want to be part of teams and you have not connected to the proper ones, you can write to us, you can contact us, and we'll put you in contact with any of the teams that we already know. Having said that, I would like to thank everyone for participating in this, and we'll be sending you the replay within 24 hours. Thank you again, and have a good day.